going to start first with the Roland FP60X. Now, this is an instrument that uses the PHA-4 action, which is a plastic action. So the first reaction people are going to probably have to this comparison is, this isn't apples to apples. The Yamaha's got a wooden action. Why haven't you put the FP90X here, which also has wood components in the action? Well, simple reason is that the FP90X is almost 50% more expensive than the Yamaha P515. From a price standpoint, these two really are the ones that are directly competing against one another. So even from a specification standpoint, the actions aren't necessarily neck and neck. From a price point standpoint, we're sort of forced to reckon between these two. Having all said that, I really like the PHA-4 action, and I've said this a multitude of times in other actions. In fact, I just picked up myself a Phantom 08 workstation from Roland that uses the PHA-4 action. I found I really enjoy improvising on action quite a bit. It's a nice blend of weight and responsive, and it's something I'm pretty familiar with. So that's what's on this FP60X. Now, it's an action that also has escapement on it, and it has a triple sensor, which is the same as what we're going to be talking about over on the P515. It also has escapement and a triple sensor. This is where I notice a difference between the plastic and the wood, and this is true of all plastic versus all wood actions. The wood actions are usually quieter because that wood deadens a lot of the resonance that's created if you otherwise have a hollow plastic key. And your finger can kind of pick up on some of that resonance as well. So as you're playing a plastic action, even the very best ones, you do tend to feel a little bit of vibration on the key as you're playing throughout the piano. It's not particularly noticeable, especially if you don't have something side by side to compare it to, but it's always there. There's just a little bit of vibration from the actual speakers that you can feel through those keys. That's just completely missing. When you have that wood key. The other interesting thing between both of these instruments is both of these actions actually tend to be a little on the heavier side. The Yamaha has the heavier between the two, but even the PHA-4, in terms of its initial resistance when you first set the key in motion, you're getting up over the 60 gram range in some cases, depending whether you're on the lower part or the upper part of the action, because of course there is a gradient that both actions have, a little heavier in the lower end, a little lighter in the high end. A lot of acoustic actions, when you're on a real acoustic piano, most concert technicians will try and regulate that to in the mid-50s or so, and only on like the biggest concert grands in the lower range might you actually start to crack that 60 gram range. That's generally considered a little bit too heavy. But both of these pianos are in excess of that. So if you're looking for a super lightweight action, neither one of these instruments is actually going to be what you're on the hunt for. Both of these actions also have some texture to the top of the key. So you're going to notice on the Roland that there's a nice subtle ivory simulated key surface, and the black key is more just a matte black finish. When we come over to the Yamaha, you actually notice that it's kind of the opposite. The white key has the matte finish, and the black key is the one that has the texture, almost like an ebony simulated surface versus trying to simulate the ivory. I would say that it's easier to slip off a black key than it is to slip off a white key. In fact, I'm not sure that you can even technically slip off a white key at all. So having a little more grip on the black key and a little more glide on the white key, to me, makes more sense, which is actually what you're going to get when you have a slightly textured white key surface and a matte black surface on the black keys. The last thing I'm going to mention about action before we move on to that core piano tone on both of these instruments is the overall weight of the action on the P515. Now, I mentioned that in both cases we're up over 60. If you actually weigh the 515 out, in some cases, and depending on where you weigh it in the white key, you're approaching 80 grams, which is definitely going to make this one of the heaviest actions on the digital piano market, period. If you are not used to a heavy action to begin with, if you don't do a lot of playing either on heavier boards or on, say, acoustic grands, you're going to get quite fatigued fairly quickly on a keyboard such as this, and you're unlikely to really know why this is happening, because the action itself is very well made. It's a nice fluid action. It feels very, very dynamic, but it takes a few minutes to show up, and it does take a little bit of getting used to. Professional players who are used to floating between digitals and 7-foot grands and studios and 9-foot grands are not really going to feel this as a negative thing. It's just going to feel like this can handle a little bit more resistance. But for people who are sort of coming up from a lighter digital piano, this is going to be a shock to the system. And it's not something that can't be, accommodated or learned, but just be ready for it, because 80 grams, if your fingers don't have that conditioning, is definitely going to wear you out.